How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to the 1-2. This is episode 3, and we sit here on June 27th, 2024, right after the conclusion of the group stage of the European Championship. A lot of great football for us over the last couple of weeks, and a lot more in store over the next 2-3 weeks of summer. My name is Rahul. You can find me on Twitter at SmallTalkFF, and as always, joined by my co-host Olan. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, mate. It's been a fantastic few weeks of football, and I'm really looking forward to more of it.
Yeah, it really has. And maybe I might caveat my earlier statement. Like, we haven't all had all glowing, fluid, fluid football, especially from some of the leading lights at the competition. But in general, it just felt like a great tournament. We kind of touched on it in our never to be seen Euros preview episode. Due to a technical malfunction back at the 1-2 offices, the video never ended up seeing the light of day. And then actually, Olan was gone up at Zion, wasn't it, the past week? Is that right?
Yeah, indeed. The lady and I wanted to take a little trip, and we did. It was lovely, quite hot, almost as hot as my room feels right now. So, pardon my attire currently. But it's been a fantastic hot summer so far. And apart from the Copa America, we've really enjoyed every second of it.
Apart from the Copa America, I mean, I did catch the American game. The USA did beat Bolivia 2-0. Honestly, should have been 4 or 5-0. The number of chances they missed. The quality of football in the Copa America does not seem up to par. So we'll be saving. Maybe we'll have a special episode or at least a segment towards the Copa later on this summer. Today we are focusing on the Euros, going through the recently concluded group stage, hand out a few superlatives here and there, that teams may not want. And then we will preview the knockout stage. I can say from that deleted episode that every prediction we got was absolutely spot on. No one here said that Ukraine would go through or Scotland might have pulled up a few trees. None of that. We were absolutely spot on, and we will continue to be here on the 1-2. So, hold on, let's get right into our show. Going into some group stage superlatives, tell me, who is your candidate for the most impressive team at the tournament so far?
It has to be Spain, hasn't it? I mean,
Mhm.
we, I'll be completely honest, we had Croatia winning the group. From match day one, we could see that was not happening. The Spaniards completely blew them away. I mean, we'll get more into it later, but I think Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams have reminded us what a winger really is and how they should
Mhm.
play. It's not really an inverted forward, it's just pure winger play. They've been fantastic. They can score, as we saw against Croatia. They can also close up shop, as we saw against Italy. And even their backups performed really well in
Mhm.
match day 3 against Albania. So far, they seem the most complete team to me.
I completely agree with you on that one. I think the best team so far after 3 match days. I think something that we initially had mentioned is, was there enough quality up front? Nico Williams has popped up. Morata has scored at least one, maybe a couple of goals. But what has surprised me by the quality of Spain's team is actually in that midfield. We were kind of saying that it's Rodri who is rightfully the best in his position in the world, but I've been very impressed, especially with Fabian Ruiz and of course Pedri, who maybe the lights dimmed a little since he first broke out and then played like 80 games in a calendar year or something. But both of those two players have been really impressive. So I completely agree with you there, the Spain call. We'll get into them more as we go through the knockout stage preview. Another team that did make it through, and naturally for this kind of list, is Austria, who I'm putting forward as my candidate for most impressive team. Uh, did have a 1-0 loss in the first game against France, and I think I remember telling you that I was actually very impressed in spite of that game and in spite of France deserving to win. We've really seen the best of that Ralph Ragnick style of pressing football that the egos of Manchester United just could not handle. Aside from the first 30 minutes against Crystal Palace, I thought I saw the future. But you're seeing the best of that at this tournament. And something that we really mentioned and hit on a lot was, how fit are these players going to be after a long season? Can they then play an intense tournament where teams do seem very tactically matched up? the Austrian press and the commitment to it, and just the way the whole team has kind of bought into his ideas, I think it's been very impressive. I expect them to, make a statement in the knockout stages as well.
Yeah, I mean, Ronaldo once said he's not really a coach, referring to Ralph Ragnick, but he
Mm-hmm.
has been coaching his bum off. He's really got those lads playing so well together. We'll get more into it later, of course, but apart from that lucky own goal, the unlucky own goal, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
for them against France, they've looked sumptuous. Their midfielders looked so great. Their wingers have looked great. Arnautovic has looked good. They actually could be a threat in that side
Mm-hmm.
of the draw.
Yeah, an especially soft side of the draw, as we'll get into, especially that little quadrant where we're going to have one complete surprise name when you look at least from the start of the tournament there in the semifinals, potentially waiting for the three lion, but we will see. Let's move on to our next superlative, and this is on the flip side. Who has been the least impressive team in the tournament for you?
Well, naturally, as an Englishman, me and these lads have never really gotten on. I do have a good couple Scottish friends that I cherish, but Scotland to me, I mean, an own goal from Rudiger in the first match when they were getting completely blown out, and then a very deflected shot by Scott McTominay that went in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
those are their only two goals, and they've conceded seven. I think that's the most of the tournament, and they just looked so hopeless for Germany in the opening match. I got to give it to them. You know, everyone has kind of played well in this tournament. The so-called minnows, including Georgia, who again we'll get into more later, have all impressed. I
Mm-hmm.
can't really remember a moment where Scotland did.
Least impressive, I guess, is an interesting category because I actually, before we kind of communicated right before this video, I thought you would go with England themselves. I would say a lot of big teams have maybe struggled to hit the heights that we project for them at their best. So that's kind of where I'm going to lean to with my answer, not going for, one of the biggest of big names. But I think Belgium have really disappointed me in this tournament. There's just the whole team is just really stinky, to put it as bluntly as I can. Lukaku, it's a shame because really Lukaku has been one of the best goal scorers of the last decade in his pure numbers, but he has just had on the big stage the biggest of flops, and the catalog of missed chances in this tournament itself have been shocking for Lukaku. De Bruyne, yeah, there we go. De Bruyne, while still a great player, he just doesn't seem to gel with this team, and you can kind of almost see him throwing his toys out the pram. The vibe just does not feel too good about that Belgian team, and every team in their group got 4 points. Belgium were very close to being knocked out if Ukraine had scored that late chance. What have you thought about Belgium? And maybe if there's a bigger team that has disappointed you, who would they be?
Well, starting with Belgium, I mean, I never thought I'd say this, but they kind of miss Martinez, don't they? Sure, you can say that the golden generation is over with, but they still have quality, you know? Amadou Onana, or Andre Onana, as one reporter called him,
Yeah.
has been really quality to me. They still have Tillemans. They still have De Bruyne, as you mentioned, although he's not the same De Bruyne he was before. He was really injured this season for a while. Still hit some quality heights for Man City, but didn't look like the De Bruyne of years past.
Mm-hmm.
Doku is there and has been quality, but really it hasn't just come together. And I know I've said it for the third or fourth time. We'll get into it more later, but it doesn't seem like they've figured out. Domenico Tedesco, their new manager, hasn't really figured out how to get them to play super well. To
Mm-hmm.
answer the second part of your question, I mean, obviously you could go with England. I could go on. I could have a whole podcast at what England should be
Right.
doing, but I would probably break my new computer. So let's not do that. But you know, the tournament favourites, France, have not looked great either. They've
Mm-hmm.
scored an own goal and a penalty.
Of course, France, the storyline has been about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle himself, Kylian Mbappe. But yeah, we'll get onto all the group, all the teams that went through a little bit later in more depth, and as we break down the matchups coming up. So let's move on to some quicker categories. What has been the best game for you so far?
It has to be the 3-1 for Turkey, Georgia. Some of the goals, some of the
Mm,
quality in that match was fantastic. Georgia, to me, I know this is coming up later, but I'm just going to say it. Georgia was the biggest surprise of the tournament for me by far. They
Mhm.
honestly shouldn't even be there. They qualified through a little Nations League exemption. Again, talk about it more later. But they've been so solid. Um, I think that Willy Sagnol, their manager, has been really quality in getting them to play together, really compact. Obviously, not so much against Turkey, but the Turks, they've impressed us as well. And both
Mhm.
teams have been slightly inconsistent. Both teams are still alive, but that's the beauty of the Euros. I mean, some people complain that third place teams shouldn't be qualifying for the knockout stages. I think it gives a bit of breath and life to the game because it allows teams to be more adventurous going forward.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great stuff that you hit on there. Just to wrap up, the biggest surprise actually, Spain would have been mine because I think just the expectations we had going in, we did expect them to be the best team, best looking team coming out of the group. Best game, I actually had two 1-1 draws on my kind of candidates. Italy, Croatia, and Germany, Switzerland. I thought were two excellent 1-1 draws with a lot of jeopardy as it came to qualification, and also featured late goals. My candidate would be Austria, Netherlands, which finished 3-2. That wasn't one where, I mean, Austria are very impressive, but the Netherlands were extremely disappointed in that game. I think I'll steal a little or give you a little preview of your notes, but Netherlands have been kind of a yo-yo team, almost impossible to predict which team you'll actually get on the field. But Austria Netherlands is such an exciting game, and teeing up with the last category, best goal for me, I think it's actually Memphis Depay's volley to make it 2-2 in that game. Kind of you start that goal maybe 10 seconds back, it's almost a Mandzukic Juventus versus Real Madrid in the Champions League final. I mean, that was a perfect goal. The ball didn't even touch the ground, but a lot of head tennis, put it out, get it to the big man, and then contorting his body to get that kind of power. Mandzukic, I mean, contorted the other way, but Depay just to get his leg to generate the power on that volley. I thought that was a very impressive goal and one that I really enjoyed. What about you? Best goal of the tournament so far?
It has to be Nikolai Stanshu versus Ukraine. I mean, the little layoff outside the box for him, that perfect curl to the other side of the net. I mean, that was just so gorgeous, and that's proper football to me. That's a proper screamer that I've been complaining about, I'd say, for the last year. Being a Chelsea fan, you don't see those goals anymore, really. Um, Even from Lisan Al Gaib, Cole Palmer, you don't really see that sort of stuff. So I have to give it to him. Zakangi deserves a bit of credit. As you mentioned before, that 1-1 draw was sumptuous, like so many other games in the tournament. But just for the drama, I actually turned off the game to go to the gym. And then
Yeah.
I got the notification as I'm on my run there, oh, that Italy had scored. And I did not see that coming. So that's sumptuous. And I have to give a bit of credit to the young man, Arda Güler.
Yeah.
Um, the young man had a beautiful, similar goal to Stanshu. I still give it to Stanshu because I think the shot was prettier, but Güler has to be mentioned. Some strike that was.
It was. It really has been the kind of the rebirth of the finesse shot in this game. You're seeing all those FIFA 11 grinders come play at this.
RBB.
This yeah, exactly. Another point that you mentioned, we've kind of danced around, is there has been a lot of late goals in this tournament. I kind of wonder though if that's a change and something we're going to see more regularly. As much as we want to say this has been such a great summer of football, but the truth is we are getting way more injury time than we ever have before in starting for the last Premier League season and going into this tournament.
To be fair, it has been quite a few years since Project Restart. Not really much of a break for much of these lads, if we're being completely honest.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the goalkeeping this tournament, I think, has been fantastic from many sides. Mamar Dashvili for Georgia, if I'm pronouncing the name right, is a great example. I'm also thinking the football in general has been fun. If we look at the World Cup, there were so many penalties. A lot of people just pointed to Argentina because they won,
Yeah.
but in general, there were so many penalties. I think there have only been a few like one or two I can think of this tournament, there's been quite a few own goals. Everyone online
Mhm.
has seen that the leading scorer for the Euros is named own goal, and Chelsea is preparing a £150 million offer to buy him.
Uh-huh.
Um, but in all seriousness, I think all those own goals are just due to the nature of the attacking football. If you press a team a lot defensively, they're going to break eventually, and just an errant foot here or there is going to put the goal in the back of your own net.
Exactly. I mean, we're all here for chaos. Second, we're here for the three lions to take it home. And on that note, let's get right into the business end, not just of the tournament, but of this show. So let's get right into the bracket, starting at the top. The first game, actually, of the round of 16, Saturday, June 29th at 9 a.m. Pacific. Switzerland versus Italy. Give me your thoughts on this game.
Well, Switzerland had a good opening match versus Hungary, solid win. Then they had a really boring draw versus Scotland. I guess Scotland just didn't want to play, and that doesn't really help Switzerland's style. Switzerland are really good at crowding the midfield and just preventing other teams from playing, which they did to perfection against Germany, really. It was a really solid draw. Um, Jan Sommer has been really solid at the back. Akanji has been really solid at the back with him. Granit Xhaka has taken his great form from Leverkusen into this team as well. And then to me, who's really impressed me up front is Ndoye.
Mm-hmm.
With his pace and shiftiness, he tries a lot of things, which gives this team a lot more creativity than it's had in the past. Mbolo coming off the bench has been great as well. To me, they're a really solid squad, and honestly, I see them beating Italy, and that's not any British or English, I should say, anger for the last Euros. I swear it's not. I'm just not overly impressed by the Italy team, and we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into the Italian team, but to sum up, maybe all that you said, I think the word for me about the Swiss team is professionalism. Maybe there's a cultural stereotype in there somewhere, but it's just a team that knows what they need to do, and especially in that last game against Germany, very disappointing that they couldn't pull off the win because they really worked hard and honestly maybe merited the result in the end. Uh, but the Swiss team almost have these kind of names that if you watched football maybe 10 years ago, everyone would have known Briel Embolo and Ricardo Rodriguez, the left back, and now they just seem to pop up whenever there's an international tournament. The Swiss team, perennial knockout stage, participants. Round of 16, you can almost pencil them in. Did we pencil them in our preview? You'll never know. But tell me why maybe it's an Italian story to tell. Tell me why you're almost perceiving this upset due to how the Italians have been.
Well, really, it's only an upset in name, right? Because if you've
Mm-hmm.
watched the football, Switzerland have been leagues above Italy.
Right.
If not for Donnarumma, I think Italy would be out. Him and Bastoni, to me, have been by far their best players. Bastoni defensively and in the air, particularly, has been immense. I mean, he is a big lad. He does play for Inter. I think in our preview that was deleted, I said that he may be great player, a good player, but not a great player. He's proven me completely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think the midfield as well has not really impressed me. I know Barella scored against Albania where they barely got by, but him and Jorginho haven't produced enough. And the front line neither. Retegui, Raspadori, Chiesa have been shuffled in and out of the lineup. None of them have really produced. However, Italian football in the knockout rounds has historically been quite good, but it still seems the Swiss will control the middle of the park and overwhelm them. Calafiori, who had
Mm-hmm.
the assist against Croatia towards the very end, is actually really good at driving the ball through midfield and finding the ball forward. But I'm not really seeing Barella, Jorginho, Di Marco, any of these guys doing that. So Calafiori's assist for Zaccagni has kind of been their highlight so far, but I don't think that's enough.
I don't think that's enough either. And honestly, just going through a lot of the names you touched on, I mean, Donnarumma, Bastoni, Calafiori, contenders for Team the Tournament already. The rest of them, it's like you're naming me some kind of exotic pasta shapes or cold cuts like prosciutto, mortadella, salami. Get in the front line. You're playing against Switzerland today. I mean, just the drop off in the quality of some of these nations, not just the Italians, but to go back to the point you started your kind of discourse with, it would be an upset in just like nation big name value itself. These are probably two evenly matched teams. I would take the under on goals scored in this one. It's two teams that, have been there in knockout football. Maybe a 1-1 into extra time or even penalties. I'll stand with you. Let's go Switzerland on this one. You agree?
Yeah, it has to be. I mean, Switzerland did beat France on penalties 3 years ago. The
Mm-hmm.
Italians are quite good at pens. We all know that. They won their last World Cup doing so. But I really just don't see much quality in this team. I honestly didn't see that much quality in the team in 2021, but at least they had some veterans at the back.
Mm-hmm.
Chiesa was on fire. Those veterans are gone. That Chiesa seems to be gone since he ruptured his knee. So there's a bit of magic missing for Italy currently.
That yeah, great last point to edit on because those three names, the goalkeeper and the two center backs, yes, a spine like that can win you tournament football, but you also do need that kind of mercurial attacking player to make those magic moments happen. Unfortunately, injuries just seem to have sapped that away from Chiesa. But we'll move Switzerland forward, and who do we predict to join them? The next game is, of course, England Slovakia, Sunday, June 30th at 9 a.m. Take me through this one, Olan.
I'm going to keep the England side of this brief because otherwise I'm going to break something. England have to figure it out. They really do. You remember when I was texting you after the match the other day against Slovenia? Um, I can't believe Southgate seems satisfied. Sure, we up the tempo a tiny bit, but we look absolutely clueless at times. Um, I'm at a loss for words. It is so frustrating watching them. I'll just keep it at that, honestly. Slovakia have been really solid, though. Martin
Mm-hmm.
Dubravka, we all know him from his time at Newcastle. Been a solid goalkeeper there this year in replacement for Nick Pope. Skriniar has been solid too, but we have to give credit to Lobotka. Man of the match against the Belgians when they had that huge upset.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't hold the midfield together against the Ukraine where they lost, which was a bit surprising. But they have been surprisingly entertaining, and they could cause England some trouble. I do think England will squeak by. I do think England eventually, and maybe it is because I am English and hope and pray we figure it out. I do think eventually it clicks together. I mean, I've said it before, best player in La Liga, best player in the Prem, European Golden Boot winner. It has to come together at some point. I don't know if that is with Cole Palmer coming into the side. He was electric coming
Mm-hmm.
in for those last 20 minutes. I don't know if we need to drop Bellingham back into the 8 role, put Foden in the 10, or maybe just start Kobe Mainu because at first when he came on in the second half for our boy Conor Gallagher, or my boy I should say, he looked a bit lost, but he grew into the game. I think he needs to start if we're not going to drop back Bellingham, which I don't think Southgate has the cojones to do, in all honesty. I am so sick of Southgate. I can feel my blood boiling a little, so I'm going to calm down and just say I hope England wins.
Ooh, let's just take that down a few notches and then ratchet that back up after a little 10-second spiel on Slovakia is just to say I would expect a similar level of opponent to Slovenia and definitely to maybe closer to Denmark somewhere there. I would expect a very similar game, tense, a team that's going to set up deep and maybe attack the wings kind of like, especially in the last game against Slovenia, there seemed to be a concerted plan to put those crosses in from the left side. But here, really, the discussion here is England. And a lot of good points you brought up. Just to quickly steal a quote from Zlatan himself, it seems like Southgate has a Ferrari and he's driving it like a Fiat, really, with all the talent that's there in the team. I do want to address the balance, and I think we could probably agree, just knowing Southgate's tendencies, the Bellingham move back into the 8 and another attacking player is just not going to happen. In the stage of knockouts in his, fourth tournament, he's not going to make that change, right? So I think where first maybe we'll start is Conor Gallagher versus Kobe Mainu. I know there's a lot of calls. Maybe I'm obviously a lot on Manchester United Twitter and chronically online, so I see a lot of calls for Kobe Mainu. I do think it will be Gallagher again in the round of 16.
I love CJ, as you know, but apart from pressing, he did nothing.
Hmm.
I mean, I love the lad. He is great over a Premier League season where you need those legs. The last thing England needs right now is a grafter. Phil Foden just went back to England because his third child was born, so maybe he doesn't even start. I don't know how I feel about Anthony Gordon on the left wing. Sure, he brings pace, but honestly, his finishing isn't close to Rashford's. So you can't
Hmm.
just imagine we're going to ping a ball to him on the left wing and make things happen. Because honestly, he's never really wowed me. He's quick, sure. There's, honestly, I'd rather have Eze on the left wing. Um, I'm at a loss
I
for
think
words.
just
I
to,
feel like
yeah.
it's best for the show and for my own sanity that we just move on because I'm gonna throw my comb somewhere.
It may be best for the show, but we have to think about the engagement, that sweet engagement, of course. I'm in lockstep with you on the evaluation of Gordon, the player. For me, mid, right? He's a definition of mid. He's not. There's nothing special. But towards the end of the Slovenia game, you could say I could say that England looked a little more fluid when some of those substitutions came on. Was that because of Mainu, Palmer, or Gordon? My case for Gordon starting, and this is probably the least likely because he's not going to drop Foden or Saka. That's just not Southgate's MO. But I think when you've got a striker like Kane, when you've got so many playmakers, when you've got so many people who want the ball to feet, having Gordon as that profile makes a lot of sense in tournament football to stretch teams, to keep teams honest, and when you have a lot of players who can pick that pass out. I think Gordon needs to come in, or they need to do something about the left hand side. It has been putrid to watch Trippier, a right footed player, playing at left back, and Foden, a left footed player, playing on left wing, and the angles are not working out. I think something needs to be done about the left wing to get the team clicking. Because what we scored 2 goals, right? 1-0, 1-1, 0-0, 2 goals in 3 games. Um, I think left wing is where he's gonna have to attack it. Do you think he could make that change?
I mean, I just wonder. I have zero love for Man United or Rashi, but
Mhm.
why not? Especially after you saw him in the FA Cup final, why not just give Rashford that role? He's always been so solid for us in that role. That's been the reason why Maguire keeps getting picked because no matter how he plays for Man U, he's been so solid for England. Why
Mhm.
not use that same logic with Rashi? Um, I mean, I I'm honestly at a loss. I know this is a podcast and we take this both very seriously, you and I, but I don't want to start crying or anything unprofessional now because I don't flipping know, and I don't want to curse on our podcast, but
Yeah.
what the fuck,
Yeah.
man? Like
There we go. There we go. Let's just wrap this up. Give me your prediction for the game.
England might get an early goal, but the thing is, you want an early goal as a side. That's just how football works. But we get an early goal, and then we just it's like Italy 3 years ago. It's like Serbia a few days ago. We just stopped playing football. Against Denmark, we just stopped playing football. So I don't know what he tells these guys. I have no idea what you're doing, Southgate. Just please leave. Just go to
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, mate. Like,
I mean, if the English FA need any kind of precedent, the Ivory Coast sacked their manager in the middle of AFCON and went on to win the tournament. So please do the needful because we are not making the most out of just honestly a Rolls Royce of a team, really, and maybe 9 out of 11 positions on the field. But let's move on. So we have England Switzerland being the first quarterfinal. That'll be Saturday, July 6th at 9 a.m. Let's move down the round of 16 to the next game. This is on Tuesday, the 2nd at 9 a.m. Of course, all times of PST. Romania versus the Netherlands. Interesting matchup. Maybe we didn't expect Romania to be here, but take me through this game, Olan.
well, this one's interesting because the Netherlands have been so inconsistent, but let's start with Romania. So they smacked Ukraine 3-0 in their opening match. Really entertaining football. Nikolai Stanciu's wonder goal, as we mentioned before. Fantastic. But then they couldn't hold Belgium as they fell down early to an early goal. I think it was like the 5th or 7th minute.
Mm-hmm.
And then KDB broke them in at the end with his late strike. And then they could only manage a really boring draw with Slovakia where you really felt that they were just holding on hoping to get to the next round and see where it goes. Now,
Mhm.
the Netherlands, as I said, they've really confused me. They squeaked by Poland thanks to a good goal by Cody Gakpo. I never call him that,
Yeah.
so that was really difficult for me. I call him Domi Yakpo for my LA
Mhm.
people. Um, he seems their best bet going forward because Xavi Simons, although he's had some bright sparks, has been really inconsistent for me. And same with Memphis Depay. He always does produce a bit for the Netherlands, but I don't know. He's not been solid, and neither has their backline. You know, they've let in 4 goals, which is really surprising when you have Steven de Vrij and Virgil van Dijk back there. You even told me on one of their goals that he's just ball watching, which you
Mhm.
never really expect the supposed best centre half ever, according to Liverpool fans, to do. They did have a really solid match against France in their second game. They should have won, honestly. I think
Mhm.
that goal taken away was shoddy. But of course,
Very
Anthony
harsh.
Taylor, as all Chelsea fans will know, might be the worst ref in the history of refs. Um, but then against Austria, they were the opposite of solid. They were just cut open in every corner, it seems like. So it's
Mhm.
interesting which side of the Netherlands we'll see.
Yeah. Perpetually disappointed in the Netherlands, and it seems they kind of failed upward into this side of the bracket by virtue of finishing third, actually, in that group behind Austria, who we've labeled as very impressive, and France being France. Uh, I don't know. I think this is the kind of game. I wouldn't be surprised if Wout Weghorst comes on in the 80th minute and snags a goal because that really does seem to be their most effective route of attack. Maybe Ronald Koeman, too proud to admit it, but that's kind of where I look later and later in the tournament. But I think, what do you say? Netherlands go through here?
I really want to say Romania has the upset, but it's too sensible to think what you just said. Wout Weghorst comes on and has this shoddy little goal, finishes the job. Unlike against Argentina, I think he's gonna. I think they actually win in extra time. How about that?
Yeah, I'll go with that. But Netherlands going through to the quarterfinals, where honestly, maybe the hipster match of the year, Austria versus Turkey. Let me just say, I was 4 years, 3 years too early on Turkey dark horse for the Euros when they went and lost every single game in the last edition of the tournament, and now come through albeit second in the group behind Portugal, but still come through with 6 points, 2 wins, and a 3-0 loss actually against Portugal themselves. Take me through this one.
Well, Turkey are a weird side, aren't they? They blew apart Georgia eventually after a really
Mm-hmm.
cagey first half, thanks to that sumptuous finish by Guler and their 90th minute winner. Well, not winner, but to close the match at
Mm-hmm.
3-1. Then they get mauled by Portugal, like you said, like 3-0. Çalhanoğlu's really inspired them. He's been their only consistent player, I'd say. He's not been consistent every match, but their most consistent, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
And in a really messy and poorly refed third match, they were able to just get the job done, get qualification. Let's hope the young lads, Guda and Yildiz, can start to give us some more entertainment because at times they can be really cagey and quite dull footballistically.
Yeah, it's a team maybe that's a bit stuck in the past, and between the past and the future, there are a lot of exciting young players. And Çalhanoğlu, it's honestly kind of crazy to think that he is the veteran in this side. But I mean, as we touched on, I mean, for me, the story is going to be about Austria and their pressing system. I think it's a lot of it ain't much, but it's honest work, if you will. It's just 11 players, really playing together. And I think Marcel Sabitzer, we saw a bit of this when he was on loan at United and actually bursting into the box and being a direct attacking threat. We didn't see too much of that. That wasn't really his role at Dortmund, but he is quite a great he's quite a versatile player that really embodies like this whole system. Very fluid, very flexible, pops up everywhere. There actually are a whole host of impressive players in this team. They have a bit of Arnautovic on the bench. It's great to see David Alaba actually there with the squad, even though he isn't playing in this tournament. Where do you think this one goes? I want to say I'd love to say a 3-2 Austria. I think Austria will win a game where both teams score. How about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And although we might be playing it safe by choosing all the favorites so far, I do agree. I just think that Austria will just suffocate
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
Turks and set up, weirdly enough, a rematch with the Netherlands so soon, which
Mm.
could be super entertaining in of itself.
Yeah. That the first game being one of the games of the tournament so far, but I think you hit the nail on the head by your use of suffocate. I just think that's what this Austria team does to you if you're not prepared. If you slip up even for a second, I think they will take advantage. Of course, that kind of football leaves you open on the other end. We've seen Austria concede the chances. Turkey do have the quality, but I think we kind of agree here that Austria will go through for that game. So let's move on to the other side of the draw. Just to recap, I guess, what we said: Switzerland, England, and Netherlands, Austria on this side of the tournament. Uh, it's just the Southgate effect, man. How does he keep getting away with this? Move down to the other half, and sometimes in these tournaments you don't get to see these great games early, besides like a group of death. But what a feast we have in store on this side of the tournament, starting with the hosts noon on Saturday. That is Germany Denmark. What do you think about this game?
Germany was so good on match day one. Five different goal
Mm-hmm.
scorers, electric football. You could just feel the excitement. You felt that summer was properly starting and we were going to have a Euros to remember. A bit more methodical against the Hungarians,
Mm-hmm.
took their time, got their two goals. And then against the Austrian press we mentioned earlier, they seemed kind of out of ideas. To me, we haven't given this superlative out, but Musiala has been the player of the tournament so far.
Mm.
He's been electric. Wirtz has been great as well. I think Mittelstadt has been
Yeah.
quite impressive going down the left wing from his left back position. Tony Kroos, of course, giving us a sumptuous farewell. But Musiala with his footwork, his finishing is actually insane. He always gets such power into the
Mm-hmm.
roof of the net. It seems like all his finishes go. Um, he's been super good. I don't see the Danes really slowing him down. The Danes have been playing some really boring football. Ironically, against England, they were actually at their most entertaining. I
Mm-hmm.
was really afraid they were going to score a late winner against the English. They came really close. Højbjerg, you can tell he's looking for a new team. I've never seen the man just so animated, really. Postecoglou doesn't want him, apparently. And another great story is seeing Christian Eriksen on match
Yeah.
day one score a lovely goal because, as we all know, 3 years earlier, he basically died on the pitch. A really scary moment for the
Mm-hmm.
Danes, but he's back now. They actually had a lovely goal against England due to our goalkeeper's short arms. No one says it's a goal of the tournament because of that, really. But yeah, I think that's the furthest out a goal's been scored so far by Hulman. A lovely strike from distance, like I said, but they've had some really cagey matches against Serbia and
Mm-hmm.
Slovenia. So they've proved hard to break down. I don't think they've conceded too many goals. I think it's only two. But they're also quite a methodical, slow side. Hoyland doesn't seem to be getting much of the ball, much like with Manchester.
Just stay on Denmark for a second. I think Ericsson, I mean, of course, a wonderful story, but I think especially having watched him at United for the last two seasons, with Denmark, he plays more as that 10. He has that creative freedom. Or on the flip side, the defensive burden has been lifted. And I think we're seeing some of the best football he's played, maybe since he actually came back to Brentford United. Completely agree with you on Hoyland. Honestly, I've been very disappointed. I may have called him the breakout player of the tournament in that never to be seen video, but just doesn't seem to be able to impose himself. That's something that I think we've talked about. For a big lad, Hoyland is tall and fast. He's not very broad, and I'd like to see him really work on getting the ball with his back defenders and then continue to play. Yeah, he just needs to get in the gym. He's weirdly the opposite of broad for his height, but um, you would have liked to see Denmark maybe impose themselves more in those games. Of course, Serbia and Slovenia, again, not while professional, we use that word a lot today, but professional teams, the floor of this tournament is really high, but you would have wanted to see Denmark do a little more. And we didn't really get that evidence. I do think Germany are going to go through with this one. Just to wrap up the German analysis, along with those young stars, they do have that crop of veterans who are still, playing some of their better football. Kroos, as you mentioned, this is his last tournament, but I've really been impressed as well with how Gundogan and Kimmich have played as well. Just two players who have really done it all. Two players who Gundogan especially can be described as very clutch. And Germany has finally seemed to have replaced the Miroslav Klose and Lucas Podolski of old in the shape of the big man himself, Full Krug, who scored quite a few goals already this tournament. Striker finishes. And yeah, I think they'll just have a little too much for Denmark in this one. You with me?
Yeah, I was really worried you were going to say Kai Havertz, who, interestingly
Oh.
enough, he's kind of gone out on the wing, let Wirtz come inside, and Gundogan can play anywhere. Gundogan basically played almost as a central midfielder, at times defensive, due to the fact that Barca didn't really have one. But then he kind of plays as a false nine here at times. He moves up from his 10 position. Kai Havertz goes out to the right like he used to back in Germany. So I think this team is just really well managed. It's proof of
Yeah.
what good managers can do for a
I
side.
arguably, I was thinking about this right before the tournament. Nagel's been, I would say, is probably the best manager at this tournament. What do you think? Who else do we? Who's the Spain manager right now? Actually,
It's like De La Fuente, something like that.
right, yeah. But I feel like we're more talking about disappointing managers than managers who are like
I mean,
exceeding.
Spalletti he's known for his quality, but he's just really not working with anything. And again, if you're Italian, I swear to you, it's not because I am salty. Obviously, I'm devastated about what happened 3 years ago, but I'm just being honest. I try to be objective in these podcasts. I really don't think this is a great Italian side. I mean, think about it. Since Luca Toni, when has Italy had a great number 9? And don't tell me Ciro Immobile, because Ciro has never done jack bum for
Mhm.
Italy. He just lays on the floor half the time. So, they don't have a centre forward to go to. So he's a great manager. Didier Deschamps, honestly, just by his CV, he's gone into 3 finals. But you ask
Yeah,
any Frenchman,
right.
they will tell you
They'll
he's a
be
good manager.
disappointed. Yeah, Deschamps will never beat the pragmatist allegations. We'll
He
get
is
on.
he is he is basically a more accomplished Southgate. That's really what he is.
I think that's spot on, and he has one of the best players in the world, which England do have a lot of as well. So why can't they?
We have great players, but we don't. None of the players we've mentioned, or any of our players, has ever been mentioned as best in the world.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think there's another player. Why don't we just jump actually right into France, Belgium, and then we'll come back to Spain because I think that's the easiest one in this. I mean, honestly, for me, some of the stories the tournament has been N'Golo Kante back from Saudi Arabia into the team. And I mean, arguably, he's been the best player of the tournament so far. Whoa, how did that pop up there? Arguably the best player of the tournament, Kante. Without Conte, we honestly may be looking at a France side that one result goes away it might have been squeaky bum time for them to get through. Obviously, Mbappe will come back, but I've been so impressed at the level Conte is showing, and he's probably if I had to draft a team to win a tournament, the first player I would take is N'Golo
N'Golo has his limitations, as I'll get into, but his heart, physically and figuratively, is immense. The
Kante.
man, I mean, as a Chelsea fan, I love him to death. He is such a selfless player. He works so hard for the team. But France, they came in as hot favorites. You look at their lineup; it's incredible. They had a really poor win against Austria, as we mentioned. Then Griezmann had an absolute stinker against the
Mhm.
Netherlands. Going back to what you were saying before, maybe he's a bit leggy. He plays in that really, really tough Simeone system where you just got to run, 14
Right.
miles per match. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but he's not getting any younger. He's already got his eye on the MLS. Maybe his legs have gone a little because that's kind of what it looked like. And he's playing as a right-sided number 8, like an inverted number 8, a
Mhm.
role that doesn't suit him super well. So France have been disappointing. You know, they needed that penalty against Poland to go up. And then, of course, Upamecano, who had actually been quite solid throughout the tournament, he proved his clumsiness once again by just kicking a player. He
Yeah.
returned the favor. Mike Maignan actually saved the pen, but his feet were off the line. And this is where the controversy starts because I was watching the match. I should have been working, but I was watching the match. And Lewandowski actually stopped while he was running up to take the
Yeah.
pen, which is considered illegal since Neymar was just scoring pens left and right back in the day with that very technique. To me, the French just don't seem to have it right in midfield. You know, against Poland, Conte was the highest midfielder up the pitch,
Mhm.
and that's a bit odd. You know, Chouameni is not an attacking midfielder, but he's got some strike on him, as every England fan will remember. Rabiot is a great player as well. He was the furthest up the pitch in their first match against Austria. So you can tell that they don't really know what they're doing and where the balance is. You know, Paul Pogba's career is basically over with the doping stuff, let's call it.
Mhm.
That was their midfield forever. They had good balance with that. Now that seems to be gone. Most of their attacking threat really has come from Theo Hernandez, who's been immense for them. Koundé and Saliba have been solid. We need to give them a shout out, obviously. And Thuram has not been, you know, he started up front as Mbappe broke his nose. He started up front against the Netherlands. He started on the left wing against Austria. He has done absolutely nothing. Barcola came in match day 3. So
Mhm.
you hope that Mbappe's broken nose sorts itself out if you're French.
I guarantee it will be sorted out for him to play. There's no way Mbappe will miss this game. But I mean, I really agree with pretty much everything you said. It just feels like something's not working. Maybe some parallels can be drawn to the England side. I mean, Griezmann kind of excelled in that deeper role in the last World Cup, where I don't think he was awarded Player of the Tournament, but he was one of the players of the tournament. But maybe when, of course, Mbappe has missed the majority, more than half the group, Giroud being that 3 years older, maybe has lost just a step when his step wasn't already that quick. Never was his game, but that they're maybe just lacking a bit of an X factor. But they have the mother of all X factors come back in. Really, is there any way you can see? Belgium are a team with a lot of they have the names. I like that you mentioned Saliba and Koundé there. Upamecano, yeah, he's got an error in him. I just think that Saliba, especially, is going to bottle up Lukaku, and this should be maybe not an entertaining game, but a comfortable win for France, in my opinion.
That's funny. I have this as the only upset of the round of 16. The golden generation may be over for Belgium, but Lukaku's ability to score
Mm,
offsides remains. Obviously, I'm going to try to keep my hating towards him at a minimum, but I can see him just he's looked quality this tournament. If we're being completely honest, he's looked quality. He has maybe been offsides, but I think KDB's ability to wield this team on. I think if him and Doku can have a bit of a better understanding, that would be great. I think Amadou Onana is going to dominate the midfield,
mm.
even with Conte there. They're still looking for their best solutions. Domenico Tedesco hasn't really found it yet, but I actually can see them squeaking by. I feel like the pressure's really mounting on this French side,
Mm.
and most importantly, Mbappe, and this is for all my Real Madrid fans out there, he is not a number 9. You can see in the last match, he was basically occupying Barcola's space. It was like they were playing 2 left wingers. We can't play Giroud, or they can't play Giroud, as you mentioned. So they don't have that focal point there. Is Thuram going to be that guy? I don't know.
It's very strange that the front three of Mbappe, Colomwani, and Dembele all played together at least for their club side. But it seems like the front line that's lacking the most in chemistry of the Mbappe era front lines. Like Giroud is just such an enabler for someone like Mbappe who, is, as you said, not a number 9, but likes to, be the primary threat. Giroud can really facilitate that with the way he plays. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Belgium predicted as an upset. Low, lock in those bets if you believe in Olan's words. I myself would say France gets through in a kind of 2-0, really dry match. Deschamps just stinks it up, and I don't think Belgium will produce enough to get past them, in my opinion. So let's just circle back to the game we skipped, and perhaps the easiest one to call. Tell me about Spain, Georgia.
I mean, just by the fact that their backups, Spain's, I mean, were able to have a really solid win in their third match day group. I think that says a lot. You know, it's really hard to keep the rest of the squad
Mm-hmm,
happy in a tournament. I think they basically cleared the bench for that
mm-hmm,
match. Ferran Torres actually had a lovely little finish for that 1-0 win. I like we said before, that Pedri, Rodri, and Ruiz midfield,
mm-hmm.
fantastic. Ruiz actually had a fantastic goal against Croatia, and
What
he's
a
really impressed
player!
me.
Yeah, what a player. I mean, PSG. We mentioned Vitinha in when we talked about PSG in our European League roundup, but Fabian Ruiz also. What a lovely little player, huh?
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, they're kind of all over the pitch. My boy with the beautiful hair, Cuco Herrera, he has been really solid
Mm-hmm.
supporting Nico Williams down that left wing. But look, Georgia, with literally the biggest upset in European history. Um, I guess almost just getting to the tournament, but
Right.
then beating Portugal's backups with a really just solid win. You know,
Mm-hmm.
2-0. Um, that was amazing. They were solidly beaten by Turkey, and then they had a really solid draw against Czechia. But thanks to their goalkeeper Mama Dashvili, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sorry, sir, to you if I'm not. But Willie Sagnol, their manager, the lowest paid manager of the tournament, I think I read before. The legendary, well, not maybe legendary, but he was really solid
Yeah.
as that right back for France 2006. He has been playing as a team and with belief. And the Napoli man, who I won't pronounce his name because I will butcher it, Kvaratskhelia,
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah.
he's been really solid. And you know, it's incredible considering they only beat Cyprus. They came fourth in qualifying in
Yeah.
their group. Think about that. They finished behind Norway. So they only beat Cyprus in the qualifiers. They snuck in through the controversial Nations League system, which we don't need to get into because it's a bit silly. But I think it's like this is the end of the line for them. I think it's a big spanking for the Spanish.
Yeah. I mean, they've been a breath of fresh air, and you always love. I mean, Kvaratskhelia, that's a pretty good attempt. For
That was better
me,
than me.
yeah, he's just an Eastern European Grealish, especially when you think of how Grealish
Ooh,
played at Aston Villa. Maybe a
ooh.
little bit more pace about him, but was such a lovely player to watch. But I think Spain, I agree with pretty much everything you said. And the only point I'll introduce further is they have not conceded a goal in this tournament thus far. In the group of death, where the other teams conceded 3, 5, and 6 goals, to keep clean sheets in all those games, very impressive, especially with a back line is where you probably would say the name talent isn't there. Danny Carvajal is just taking it on a new lease of life after scoring that Champions League final winner. But yeah, completely agree with you. I think it might even be like a comprehensive 3-0 in this one, and Georgia's fairy tale comes to an end. Any last thoughts?
Well, I think both of your thoughts were fantastic. I never thought how Kvaratskhelia, okay, I failed that one. Um, he is really a pacier Aston Villa Jack Grealish.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a wonderful take, honestly, man. And we, in our deleted little bonus episode, which is gone forever now, I did actually say that Le Normand, that's the French way to
Mm-hmm.
pronounce it.
Yeah.
Laporte, they
Yeah.
actually both have French names, which is really
Right.
funny, and Unai
Mm-hmm.
Simon, who was never really convinced at the international stage. All three of them, you know, you didn't think that they could do this, and they have. So they've
Mm-hmm.
completely proven us wrong. To me, they're the favorites right now. I think they can honestly beat Germany, even though it's at home in the next round. We'll get on to that later, I assume, or maybe next week. But yeah, no, they've been beyond impressive.
Yeah, agree with you completely. And yeah, well, as we're getting to the hour mark, thank you all for being with us here. We'll get the next stage out next week. But yeah, there you have it, Germany and Spain, and what should be maybe the game of the tournament to that point. one would be really excited for if it does come to pass. But let's just move on to the final round of 16 game, and that is Portugal, Slovenia, two teams that, well, completely different end of expectations, completely different ways to get here. What do you think about this last one?
So Slovenia has only conceded 2 goals. So
Mm-hmm.
although they were in arguably the most boring group, they're really good defensively, that's for sure. We kind of knew that coming into the tournament since they have
Right.
Jan Oblak, who may not be like he was 4 or 5 years ago, the best in the world, or at least in that conversation, but he's still real quality, right? Still playing for a big club, still making those big saves, still captaining his nation. But speaking of quality, I said that Benjamin Chesko might not be the guy for Chelsea, but
Mm-hmm.
he really wowed me in that first match against Denmark. He's cooled off a bit since, but his partnership with target man Sporar, again, I might be butchering that, has looked really solid up front. So they're actually quite a good team because they defend really well, and their partnership up front is maybe not so much so fruitful, but it looks like quality football.
I mean, this might be like a maybe this is my Premier League centric view showing, but this is like the classic team that would maybe finish between like 12th and 15th,
Mhm.
16th, year in year round the Premier League. Two big guys up front, like I mentioned for the England game, they look to really get it out wide and get the ball in quickly. But going over the other side, how have you? What have you thought of Portugal in this tournament so far?
I mean, I've actually been a solid defender of CR7 these last few years, but it really feels like he's slowing the team down. You expect free flowing football from this side, but much as their legendary player, they look slow and lost most of the time. I thought Consensao's first goal for his nation, his late winner against the Czech, would kind of invigorate them. It did, as they had a big match against the Turks. But then maybe we're reading too much into it since they had mostly their subs in. They just looked so flat against Georgia, kind of crashing them down to earth. In all honesty, it's kind of hard to judge them. Their group wasn't overly impressive, even though three
Mhm.
teams made the knockout round. But Silva hasn't looked super convincing to me. Bernardo Silva, who is unreal for City. Rafael Leao, even less so. Honestly,
Oof.
since the turn of the year, he's been very disappointing to me.
It just seems like a bunch of players who don't want to take the game by the scruff of their neck. Bernardo Silva, especially, one thing that I've always loved about him is, and he plays for Man City, right? But he gets the ball and he immediately turns towards goal, attacks his fullback, tries to make something happen, and you just aren't seeing that. Leao, a similar type of player, this guy is a physical specimen, right? And maybe that's why he dominates a league like Italy, but it just doesn't seem like he's making the most of his talents, almost a la Rashford. I think that's a pretty good comp between the two. CR7, if I speak, I will be in big trouble. But it's just so painful to see that in the second game against Turkey, the first two he obviously assisted Bruno Fernandes's goal. The first two goals were just collapse. He's like falling down in like the build up of the goal, or it's like a missed kick, and then the other player finishes it. It's just been really embarrassing for somewhat a legend of the game, right? Let's not get it twisted. This is Cristiano Ronaldo we're talking about, but they really seem to miss Bruno Fernandes too today. But damn, we've just listed so many names. We're not even talking about the fullbacks. Pepe at 41, still doing Pepe things. Diogo Costa is an amazing goalkeeper. You just would have liked to, even though they won two and lost one with their subs in, I felt like there was a little bit left there that I wanted to see more out of them.
For sure. I mean, Joao Felix was a bit of a spark
Mm-hmm.
against Georgia, but in the other two matches, he's been basically non-existent. Um, and let me ask this to you, Rahul: does Ronaldo look like someone who just scored 50 goals?
Not one bit. So we've kind of calculated that 50 goals in Saudi Arabia is not even one European goal, if that's a match for you.
Yeah, I mean, the whole world was talking about, and of course, Roberto Martinez is being smart, pleasing Ronaldo. He started
Mm.
him when he subbed out everyone. He talked about how his assist to Fernandez should be shown to all football academies around the world. So clearly, there's still so much of a kowtow thing going on, and you still see Ronaldo put his hands up like this every time he doesn't get the ball. So
Yeah.
there is still a pressure to just feed him. I don't know if that works anymore.
Yeah, it's so tough. Wrap this one up. Give me your prediction for Portugal, Slovenia.
I mean, I feel like I've picked the favorite almost at every match except for Belgium. I think Portugal has to get by, but I do think it'll be much harder than you think. I
Mhm.
feel like this one could go to extra time. Slovenia has been proven to be really hard to break down, but I don't think they have the quality in extra time or in penalties to beat Portugal.
I mean, now that we just spent the last 5 minutes shit talking, it's obviously going to be a Sue winner to take them through, isn't it? But that was our little preview of the round of 16. We'll of course be back next week to take you through the results. But hope you all enjoyed that one. I certainly did, at least. Olan, any last words on the tournament before we sign off today?
Southgate out. Southgate out. Ah!
God, we were, and we kind of been talking about this. For me, it's been a very refreshing summer for football. I think my interest, my love for the game kind of needed this after the season that United had. Oh, that's a. There we go. I don't know how that thing is popping up there, but I've just had a lot of fun watching this tournament, talking with everyone. I mean, it's 9 a.m., 12, noon, maybe not the most ideal times, but it does seem like everyone's really plugged in to this tournament. We've gone to Russia, we've gone to Qatar, we've had a tournament that's been played all across Europe in the COVID era. Now it's here in Germany in, the summer and the year it's supposed to happen. There just feels something right in the world again. Maybe the karmic balance has come back, but this has been the 1-2. Any last words for the viewers, Olan, besides Southgate out?
It's been a fantastic tournament. I don't think we should expect it to go on, unfortunately. I think it's going to get really cagey in a few of these
Mm,
matches. But in turn, I think that this caginess is going to bring us some wonder goals. And let's bloody hope so.
let's bloody hope so, indeed. Yeah, my maybe last bit of tidbit, if you're still here listening, is take the under on every game, I think, because we're going to see some cagey football, like Olan laid it out for you. But this has been the 1-2, our round of 16 preview and group stage roundup. Hope you all enjoyed, and we'll catch you in the next one.